Hello, I'm Crafty Patty. It's getting that time when we want to start thinking about some gifts. Most of us have made dishcloths before, and they're very easy to make, and they make a wonderful gift because they're quick and they're easy. The pattern I'm using today was actually on one of the Bernat labels, so it doesn't really warrant a video, but I thought it might be good for beginner knitters, and you can watch as I knit the different knits and purls. I wanted to show you this Bernat Scrub Off yarn in case you haven't seen it yet. The scrubby bits of yarn are great for washing dishes, or you can even use them to exfoliate your face and your body. I happened to find the Bernat Handicrafter Scrub Off yarn at my local Walmart. So they definitely sell it there. I did look online and I had a little bit of a harder time finding it for some strange reason. But I did find it on Etsy. So if you can't find it at Walmart, try Etsy. And if you can't find the Scrub Off yarn, don't fret, because this pattern works out beautifully in just your regular 100% cotton handicrafter yarn. So either way. And I used 3 3/4 millimeter knitting needles, or that would be equivalent 5 US. If you don't have this size, don't fret. It's not going to make that big of a difference if you go up a size or down a size. I have written out the pattern for you in case you don't see this pattern on the back of your label. And this will be put in the description box below the video. That's when you click on that little tiny arrow to the right, and just below the video, click on that, or it might say the word show more, and the pattern will be there for you. If you already know how to knit, then feel free to just grab the pattern and knit away. If you're a beginner, stay with me and I'll go over how to do a knitted cast on, your knit and purl stitch, cast off, and sewing in your ends. So let's get started. I always like to knit from the yarn that's inside the ball, and that prevents the yarn from rolling all over the place and hard to work with. So just reach inside and pull some out, and you might get a big clump of it. That's all right. Don't worry about that, because then we can just untangle that, make it all nice and smooth. And we're going to start with the usual slip knot. So here's the end of your yarn. You're going to just wrap it around your 2 fingers and make a cross. And then this end is going to come through the hole right here. And you can grab that with your fingers. You're going to hold on to your 2 ends and pull, and that forms your slip knot. So let's put that slip knot over one of our needles. Slip it up. Make sure you're knitting with your long end and not your short end. And now we're going to do a knitted cast on. So insert your other needle into that first slip knot. And I like to wrap around my fingers like so, holding up like this for good tension. So we're going to knit so it comes around the needle. Then we're going to bring that through, and we've now created another stitch. We're going to come into that same stitch on the right needle. Wrap around, and you bring that through, and now we've made 2 stitches. Let's do that again. Do the stitch on the right, wrap around, pull through, and now you've done 3. So you're going to do that 42 times. So you've got 42 stitches. This is number 42, so I have to bring this one over to my left needle. So I just bring in my needle and slip that off, and that will make 42. Go back and count your stitches and make sure that you have 42 on your needle. Now we're going to start by knitting 5 rows. So here's our first row. So insert your needle into that first stitch around the back of the needle, and this time that stitch is going to come off. Let's go to the next one, wrap it around and pull it off. Number 3, and continue to the end of the row, all knit stitches. And knitting the last 2 stitches on this row. And then switch your needles over, and we're going to come back and knit another row, and you're going to do 5 knit rows in total. So again, another knit row. And just on my last stitch for my last 5th row up, just knit all the way along. And now we're going to turn over and we're going to start our pattern. And so row 1, we're going to start with 2 knits. So the same as our last row is 2 knits. So now to do a purl, bring your wool to the front of your needle, and we're going to insert your needle into the front of that stitch, yarn over, and pull that off. So let's do that again. We've already got our yarn to the front here, so we don't have to do that again, but we're going to continue to knit into the front of the stitch on the other needle. And again. So we'll continue to do all purl stitches till you get to the last 2 stitches. And I'm on my last purl. And 2 stitches left, which means this has to be 2 knits. I need to bring my wool back of the needle, and I'm going to knit these last 2 stitches. You've now completed row 1, and now we're going to start row 2, and that is all knit stitches for the whole row. And now you can see the scrubby yarn is starting to come into it. Here's the scrubby stuff. And now we're going to start row 3, which is going to be knit 2, purl 2 across the whole row. So let's start with 2 knit. Again, around. And again, another knit. And to start your purl, remember you've got to bring your yarn to the front and into the front of the stitch and do 2 purl. And to do the knit, you've got to bring that yarn to the back again. And now you can do 2 knits. And again, for your purl, bring the yarn to the front, into the front of the stitch, and 2 purl. Continue to knit 2 purl for the rest of the row. And now on to row 4. And we're going to start by knitting 4. And now we're going to start with purl 2, so bringing forward. And we're going to purl 2. And we're going to knit 2. And continue purl 2 and knit 2 to get to the last 4 stitches, and that will be knit 4. And I'm finishing my last purl 2. and my last 4 stitches will be knit. So continue to knit rows 1 to 4 until you've got, about 9 inches or about 23 centimeters. I've got my 10 inches for my width, and I want you to end on a row 4. If you don't have a tape measure, you can always just bring your knitting over and form a triangle, and you can see by the side here that this is how much more that we have to knit for our length. And I've finished off on my row 4, and now we can start to complete our dishcloth by knitting 5 rows of all knit stitches. So just all knit across to the end of the row, and you're going to do 5 rows of knitting. I've finished my 5 rows of knitting, and now we're ready to cast off. So into that first stitch, wrap around like you're going to do a knit. There's 1 knit, and you're going to do a 2nd knit. And now we're going to come into that first knit stitch, slip it over that 2nd one, holding down with your yarn so you don't lose the stitch, and you're going to just slip that right over and off. Let's do that again. Another knit into the first stitch, bring it over and off. Sorry, I'm out of camera here. I'll try that again. And 1 knit into that stitch and bring it over. And continue your casts, offs, and we'll see you when I get to the last stitch. And I'm on my last cast off. And now with our last stitch, here's our little loop here. We're going to cut off our yarn, leave a tail for tying in. Here's our loop. Pass that end through the loop, pull tight, and now we can weave in our ends and we'll be all done. And using a really wide-eyed darning needle, I like the blunt end. I fold my yarn over my needle, pull down really tightly, slip it off, and then that goes onto the needle really nice and easily. And so now I'm just going to weave it into my knitting here. And I like to go in one way, and then I'll come back and go through the other way, just to make sure it's nice and secure. So that's the one way. Give it a little bit of a tug. And then let's come back the other way again. Little tug, pull it out, cut off your end, and do the same with your other end. And there we have our finished scrub off washcloth.